Hey, what's up? Alecia Daniel Hall, estate planning, probate attorney, and realtor here in South Florida. And in this video, I am going to quickly go over Chadwick Boseman, aka Black Panther's estate. They recently reached a settlement, and I'm going to give you a rundown of what is going on and why it happened. So before I jump into Chadwick Boseman's estate, if this is your first time visiting my channel, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to also click on the bell so that you'll be notified as soon as I upload new videos. I regularly upload videos about estate planning, probate, and of course, real estate. So let's jump into Chadwick Boseman's estate. So a little bit of background. In case you aren't familiar with the name, Chadwick Boseman was an actor, and for me, his most iconic role was Black Panther. But he also acted in quite a few other movies. He had an amazing career and he passed away much too young. He passed away on August 28th in 2020, and he never had any children. We know he was married. He and his wife actually got married in secret, so we don't know the exact date, but it seems as though they got married sometime in 2019. On October 15th, 2020, his wife opened probate, and in the pleadings, she indicated that there was no will. So why are we in probate in the first place? As I've mentioned in some of my prior videos, probate is required when someone passes away with assets that are solely in their name, and those assets are not going to be transferred to beneficiaries or heirs by either operation of law or contract. So an example of when property transfers by contract would be a life insurance policy. If a named beneficiary is on that policy, then the beneficiary is going to receive the proceeds from the insurance policy because of the contract, which is the life insurance policy. And an example of property passing by operation of law would be where property is owned by a husband and wife. So think of a house where the husband and wife both own it and both of their names are on the deed or title to the property. It is going to automatically transfer to the surviving spouse by operation of law. In total, the estate is valued at about $3.8 million. I highly doubt that that is all Chadwick Boseman was worth when he passed away. So my suspicion is that there was actually some estate planning done at some point, but there was a failure to either complete the estate planning or perhaps update the estate plan. And here's why. If there is a trust involved, if someone has a living trust prepared by their estate planning attorney, we would not know. Trusts are not public record. Here's a common mistake with trusts. Very often, people have a trust drafted for them and they fail to transfer assets into the trust. So my suspicion, and this is just based off solely the fact that the estate value is only $3.8 million, and I just don't believe that. I really think there were more assets, but the other assets were properly transferred into the trust. Again, I highly doubt that he only had $3.8 million in assets when he passed away, and so that is the sole reason why I suspect that there is a trust out there. And if there's a trust, any assets that were properly transferred into the trust before he passed away will actually transfer to the beneficiaries of that trust in accordance with that document. So you don't have to go into probate court in order to have those assets transferred to the beneficiaries. That's one of those situations where it's just going to transfer outside of probate. So here we have a situation where either there was no estate planning or the estate plan did not include what we refer to as a pour-over will. A pour-over will is kind of a catch-all. It's a last chance to fund your trust opportunity. And what we do with the pour-over will is we basically say, all of my assets, whatever I own, I'm transferring it into my trust that was created on such and such date, and this is the name of the trust. Now, if you have to use and rely on the pour-over will, you will have to go into probate. So when I say that I suspect that he had an estate plan but it wasn't completed, I think he had a trust and for whatever reason did not have a pour-over will. And that is the reason why when his wife filed the probate, she had to say there is no will. Of course, there's also the chance that his estate really was only valued at $3.8 million and he didn't do any estate planning, which still brings us here into probate court. Okay, so let's go through what happened. The probate, like I said, was filed on October 15th of 2020, and they just reached a resolution this week, early this week, on the terms. And here's what's going to happen. $900,000 are going to the attorneys in legal fees, because that's what happens sometimes when you fail to plan. There's going to be litigation, there's going to be back and forth conversations, maybe mediations. All that great stuff costs money because you have attorneys involved. Then the government is taking $1.5 million. Now, I didn't go through to see exactly which government, if it's the state or the feds. I didn't do any of that to see who is getting exactly how much. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, Uncle Sam and his cousin state and whomever else are getting $1.5 million out of this estate. And then the balance, it's about $2.3 million, is going to be split between Chadwick Boseman's wife and his parents. A lot of people have actually asked me, why is it that his parents even have a claim? Because he was married. Now, this probate is filed in California, and I am not a California attorney, so I actually learned something with this. I didn't know that in states like California, where they have the community property divisions and all that great stuff, if someone passes away without a will and they don't have children, some of their assets can actually end up going to their parents. Who knew? Now, if this were done in Florida, if he were a Florida resident, it would actually be different. His parents would not be entitled to anything because he did pass away with a spouse. But we are not in Florida, and states matter. And this is another point here with estate planning. Whenever you are meeting with or thinking about estate planning, it is very important that you are working with an estate planning attorney who is licensed to practice in the state that you reside in. So wherever your primary residence is, your domicile, that is where you want to have your attorney barred in, because the laws are so different and you don't want your attorney guessing when they draft your documents. You want them to actually know the laws that are going to govern your estate. It's also important whenever you relocate to another state, you should definitely, if you've already done your estate planning, have an estate planning attorney in that new state take a look at your documents and determine whether you may need to update your documents if your intention is to remain in that new state permanently. Because if you, for example, relocate from California to Florida, you may want to update your estate plan so that once you pass away, you don't have language in there that is in compliance with California versus Florida, where you now reside. Now that all of that is out of the way, here are some tips, reminders, and pointers on how this estate could have saved some money. First of all, they could have saved money in legal fees. Again, as I mentioned before, there are going to be legal fees whenever you have litigation or multiple parties claiming assets in an estate. Now, there's no guarantee that your family members are not going to fight, but there are things you can do to try and help prevent the fighting. In this situation, if he had had a will that made it clear that he wanted everything to go into a trust, if he already had a trust, or a trust that is going to be created by the will, because that is also possible. Or if he just wanted to use the will and transfer everything to his wife, that would have been the opportunity to do it, and there would have most likely not been $900,000 in attorney's fees that were paid. One other thing, when you have a probate fight, people don't realize this, but in most situations, whoever is fighting, whoever is claiming an entitlement, their attorney's fees can actually be paid out of the estate. So I always tell people, when you're fighting like this over, a couple of coins, whatever it is, understand that as long as you drag the fight out, you are depleting whatever money is going to be available for any of you. So keep that in mind. All right, next. I mentioned before, trusts are private. They are not public record, whereas probate pleadings, probate filings are public record. There's kind of a little nuance here in Florida. I don't know if it's like this in every state. Here in Florida, we have e-filing. So I pretty much rarely have to send anything to the court. We upload the copies and we file it that way. Since I'm a licensed attorney here in Florida, I can pretty much log onto any county clerk's website and I can pull the probate documents and I can actually view them, regardless of whether I am the attorney of record in that case. We have to file and register in order to have that access, but as an attorney, I am authorized to have that access. Now, the public, although the documents are public record, the public cannot access certain documents by just going online, and those are probate documents. So very often when I have a probate closing, so my client is a probate client, I handle the probate, and they're also selling the real estate, It happens all the time where the title company sends me a whole list of things they need, and I'm like, okay, this is there, this is there, this is there, but they don't have access to that when they run their searches. And the title companies no longer send runners to the court to pull physical documents from the clerk's office. They just rely on what they can pull online. I am able to then just go online and get the document for them with the recording book and page so that they have it for their file, so that they're not asking for it to be signed at the closing table. So I just went on a whole tangent, which I do sometimes, but the whole point of that was simply to say that probate pleadings are public record. But as I mentioned earlier, if you have a trust is not public record. We do not file the trust with the court. We do not file the trust with the clerk when we send things for recording. And so as a result, it's not public record. Unless, of course, there's a fight. If there's a dispute with the trust, we have to file, the relevant portions of the trust if some of the parties are arguing over, whether the trustee is following the terms of the trust. Obviously, in a situation like that, you have to say, judge, this is what the trust says. And the judge needs to actually see the relevant language. But for the most part, your trusts are private. They're not public record. And so that's why if you're a private person, or if you want your business to be private and you don't want people like me to just be all up in your business and tell the world what's going on in your probate case, then having a trust would be one way to avoid it. So in a nutshell, Chadwick Boseman, aka Black Panther, aka 42, either did not have any estate planning done, or he had estate planning done, but it was incomplete because it did not include a pour-over will. In any event, here we are. His parents are going to share his estate with his wife, and that is pretty much the end of it. I will also add that $3.8 million included some royalties that came in. I think it was about $230,000 in royalties that accrued after he passed away. So the estate is going to be continually making money. And the royalties, as far as who's entitled to it, that will have now also been decided in the settlement agreement. The family is not going to have to come into probate court every single time a royalty check comes in. What's going to happen is the settlement agreement will make it very clear as far as who is entitled to what portion of any future proceeds from the royalties. So that's all going to be resolved once this probate is complete. But there you go. This is a summary of Chadwick Boseman, aka Black Panther's estate. And just another reminder, guys, it is extremely important that you have your estate planning taken care of, regardless of what your health condition is, and also regardless of your socioeconomics, because here's another reminder. Estate planning is not only about what happens to your things after you pass away. It also includes what happens to you and or your things while you were still alive if you become incapacitated and are unable to take care of your affairs. If you have any questions or would like to schedule a consultation, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is below, and it is also in the description box.